Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With the latest WWE edition of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again. The Silver King is feeling 100%, and vintage Chris Vanini is with us from the beginning of the show. Who would have thunk it? We are here to break down everything that happened over the last week across WWE, spanning Raw, SmackDown, and beyond. And we're going to be doing it by delivering performance-enhancing audio directly to your ear holes. Off the top, allow the Silver King to remind you that here at Getting Over,
it's all about Defy.
So please, folks,
stop being marks for yourselves and go back to being a mark for me.
Go back to being marks for the Silver King Vintage and Getting Over as an entity. Head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show, and you can vote in those pre and post show polls surrounding special events. On YouTube, when you subscribe, you can listen to full-length audio episodes and watch full-length video interviews, of which we will have a new one coming your way next week. Hopefully we get to tease it a little bit later in the week. Vintage, welcome to the show at the beginning of the program for the first time in a long time. Outside of your Michigan State Spartans getting walloped this past weekend, how's everything been going for you?
Things are good. As of recording, no new injuries in the household.
Good.
The Lions won on Monday night. I was watching three things at once. I was watching the baseball and Monday Night Football and Raw. Went back and caught up on Raw again to make sure I saw everything. But eventful Monday night and a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I am very much a my team exclusive baseball fan. When the Yankees are playing, I will watch. And when they are not, I am not wasting 3 to 4 hours watching a baseball game. However, it does seem like the end of that game, what was it, 7th inning, 3-run homer, was pretty damn cool. So, yeah, I mean, there are exciting moments in the sport, no question. But, yeah, I've lost my passion for baseball over the last decade or so.
I did, and then the Tigers made a crazy run to make the playoff last year, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, baseball again. So I've been into it for the last year. Also, it was third on my watching because the YouTube multi-view wouldn't let me do football and baseball together, and then Raw's on Netflix, so it's like had to pull out a lot of different devices to make this stuff all happen. This is the weird, crazy world that we live in now.
It is. You showed something, I think it was on Friday, that for the first time, I believe, by the way, SmackDown was available as a YouTube TV multi-view option alongside sports. So you could watch those together all in one screen, which I thought was pretty cool. But that is also one of the major detriments of Raw being a streaming exclusive show is you just cannot do that, nor can you flip between Raw and anything else that's happening. You literally have to change apps. And that is one of the biggest frustrations I have. Not that I would usually flip. I have 2 TVs in my living room, so for me, it's a non-issue. But back in the thinking about like if I was in someone else's shoes or back in the day, there's a really compelling Monday Night Football game on, and you just, maybe you're not going to watch because you're a WWE fan and your team's not playing on Monday Night Football, but it's tied with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. You would probably pause Raw and go switch if you're a big football fan. Now you don't really have the opportunity to do that. You basically have to pause Raw, go watch the football, and then come back to Raw.
We're old enough to remember the Monday Night Wars. And if you think about it, having Nitro and Raw go against each other seems like it'd be really stupid.
Yeah.
And it was, and everybody thought it was at the time, but I don't know. It somehow worked at the time.
Well, that was WCW's decision. But yes, it did. And not only did it work, it helped both companies because once they actually got into a war, everyone got involved. Even it brought in people from the outside to see what was going to happen next. The products got really good and so on and so forth. That certainly did not happen when it came to the NXT and AEW brief head-to-head war that we had a couple years back. I would say neither show benefited from that. And it's a different age.
If we had Raw and Nitro on the multi-view and you could just watch them both at the same time, that would have been amazing.
Yeah, on a multi-view situation where you could just change the audio back and forth, that would be pretty sick. So like there's a lot of, people who listen to this show who are, I would assume, like millennial, Gen Z, past the age of VCR. Let me just briefly tell you guys what I used to do. Okay. Because I was a WWF fan. Okay. And WCW was always secondary to me. Didn't really give much of a shit about it. But when it got popular, and I also had a newsletter that I operated, so I had to cover both. I had to watch every episode of Nitro and Thunder and all that type of stuff. Well, we did not have DVRs. TV did not come through digitally. So what you had to do was put a blank tape into your VCR, record a different channel that was not on your TV while simultaneously watching the channel that was on your TV. And you couldn't pause or off. You wanted to get a snack or go to the bathroom, or if something happened in the house, you were SOL because you were not taping it because you were taping something else. And that is how we had to operate forever up until the, invention of DVR. And then even when DVR came through, you could only record like 2 things at once. But when cable and broadcast TV was still really, really popular and not everything was streaming, there would be nights I remember in college when I had a DVR where like whatever night, let's say Thursday night, there'd be 4 shows airing simultaneously that you wanted to watch, whatever they were, an NBC comedy, a drama on this, a sporting event, whatever the case, SmackDown, and you literally couldn't do it. You had to pick 2, and the other one, you would hope that it would rerun at some point during the week. So what all of you kids these days, I hate to be the old man kind of, at this moment, Chris, but what the kids these days have with being able to record and get everything on demand at a moment's notice, that is not how we grew up.
No. As much as we complain about certain things, it's better than it used to be.
It's way better than it used to be. Yeah, for sure. There's no question about that. All right, Chris, look, we have a ton to talk about from this week in WWE. Main event storyline pivots, title changes. We're going to run through all of it.
But I'm afraid I've got some news.
And this is actually an interesting news segment this week because much of what I plan to bring up has already been like covered on our buymeacoffee.com/gettingover and been refuted by people who reported it. So like we're kind of in this weird zone, but let me break it down like this. Getting Over was first to refute the ridiculous reporting this past weekend about WWE using artificial intelligence to do its storytelling. This came out on Friday. And of course, immediately Friday early afternoon, we did our update on buymeacoffee.com/gettingover, telling you that it frankly was bullshit. We were also the first to report the return of Ilja Dragunov to WWE television. And that kind of gives me the opportunity to remind you that here at Getting Over,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well, because for $5 a month and $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Over head. You just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. You sign up, you get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. You sign up, you don't have to worry about that erroneous reporting. You just hit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. You support us, and it allows us to continue doing the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. But Chris, there was even more blatantly false reporting this week about ESPN's perspective on WrestlePalooza, which was supposedly called a, quote, failure, but I promise you, according to sources with ESPN, was seen as anything but by the network. Now, you and I believe it was a failure in terms of creative. It wasn't a very good show. In fact, there were many parts of it that we actively disliked. But for ESPN, they believe WWE is off to a strong start on its streamer. They have even higher expectations for what's going to happen in December into January by the time the YouTube TV and Xfinity and all these other agreements get renegotiated, the carriage agreements, and all those customers are going to get ESPN Unlimited for free, so they're not going to have to spend any money to watch the WWE PLEs. In terms of our perception of the ESPN deal, Chris, I'm going to speak for you briefly. I'm going to say neither of us have been able to truly experience it properly to this point. Survivor Series for me is going to be the first time, assuming my Florida Gators game is not on at the exact same time, that I'll be able to watch the Netflix and ESPN feeds simultaneously to see how one is handled versus the other. So far, I've had no issues with the ESPN deal from a customer standpoint outside of the post-show getting cut off early, and then I had to wait to watch it on the back end. But the streams have been solid, the start-stop, the rewind and fast-forward. There really haven't been problems for me from a consumer standpoint. Really, the biggest detriment to the deal right now is those carriage agreements that have not been worked out.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak much to that side of it because I have not watched a WWE event on the ESPN app. I for one, don't have the full unlimited version because I'm YouTube TV, but two, I was busy during WrestlePalooza. And I eventually just watched all of it on highlights, and I watched Crown Jewel on a website after the fact. So, yeah, I may just be doing that until it gets settled. But if ESPN thinks it's good, I believe them, and they're locked together. So even if it was bad, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. When you are a reporter and you talk to people who work, whether it's with sports teams or networks or whatever the case might be, they give you information on background, right? They're basically saying, hey, you can't quote us on it. You can't say my name, when you say some of this stuff. But what you can tell people is what we actually believe in the background about what's going on. And that's one of the reasons why they don't want to attribute it to anyone. And when I brought this up, the reporting that this was a failure, the literal first reaction was a laugh, like an audible, loud laugh. And then, no, that's not the case. We're actually extremely pleased with the way WWE WrestlePalooza went. And Crown Jewel was even better. So that's the response I got. It's pretty much all I can say. And also, that's pretty much it for the true news items this week, Chris. In terms of the shows themselves, which we always talk about in this section, the start of SmackDown, I thought was a bit odd. It seemed as if it was almost like the beginning of a new season, which usually happens in October for cable. There was different transition music that was unexplained and unannounced. Vic Joseph and Corey Graves were on commentary. They didn't explain at all why Vic was in the main chair, though obviously it makes sense because Michael Cole was coming back from Australia, probably needed a week off. Vic and Corey were fantastic together. They're genuine friends. They just click when they're on commentary. I love that Vic, by the way, has been getting more opportunities on the main roster in addition to his other duties. Overall, I thought it was a tale of two SmackDowns. Most of the show was quite good. The through line with the main event, for me, as we're going to discuss in a moment, it kind of dragged down the entire episode. It's usually the other way around on the Blue brand. There were also 2 picture-in-picture commercial breaks during the show, which was great. We like those. Unfortunately, they occurred in the 2 matches that didn't need them. The best match and the most important match didn't get one. It had 2 full commercial breaks. So that was really frustrating. I don't know if they thought that through. But again, SmackDown in totality, still much better than it had been the last few months. Just a little bit odd this week.
Yeah, solid episode. And yeah, I wasn't sure if some of those changes and whatnot was just coming back from Australia or whatever. I did notice it felt a little off. I wasn't sure if that was because I just hadn't watched it live as much the last couple of weeks. But considering what SmackDown had been for the previous few months, last week's in Perth and this week's a good step up.
For sure. Raw was actually somewhat a continuation of this. I wouldn't call them parallel episodes necessarily, but they were extremely similar. What I will say, last week we praised the combined Raw SmackDown 1-2, saying it was among the strongest since WrestleMania and one of the strongest combinations of shows all year. This week was a slight step down, but it was similarly consistent from Raw to SmackDown, or really from SmackDown to Raw. There was not the maddening creative disparity that's existed for most of the last few months outside of the women's division on the Blue brand.
And Raw was obviously going to be about one main big storyline that we all wanted the answer to and eventually got. So it did feel like they kind of moved over. I don't like, is Bronson Reed, is he a SmackDown or a Raw superstar?
Why would he be a SmackDown superstar?
Because I thought I had seen him on SmackDown because Roman was there. I don't know. It's just the guys have been showing up on various shows, partly because they're in Perth and all this other stuff and the various movements that I'd kind of. But I say that to say, like,
I don't think they were on the go home for Perth. Maybe they were, but I don't think so.
But I say all that to say I agree that it did feel like a continuation from SmackDown to Raw in a way that the show often doesn't because of that divide.
Yeah, no question about that. Something I've noticed also about WWE, really the last couple of years since Paul Levesque took over creative, and maybe one of our listeners can go do the research because I did not have time to do it before the show. But it seems to me, Chris, like Levesque, loves changing multiple titles in the same week or the same 2-week period, and then just not doing it for extended periods of time. I'm just recalling multiple times over the last few years where we'd see like a title change on SmackDown and then immediately one on Raw, or vice versa. We'd see one on Raw, and then 4 days later, we'd see one on SmackDown. Sometimes without even expected buildup to those specific results. That was the case this week. It made for entertaining, unexpected TV. That's positive. But it always seems to happen in a short window of time rather than be a little bit spread out, which would make it even more unexpected if they didn't always happen back to back.
Yeah, that's true. It does feel like things kind of happen all at once. Like you'll have a SummerSlam, you'll have a WrestleMania. Crown Jewel wasn't quite that because title versus title stuff, but yeah, it does feel like the last couple of weeks have been very eventful for that reason.
And lastly here, Chris, we've lost track of this signs of the year gimmick we were doing earlier. We had the John Cena, what was it, Chairman Mao sign that is still number one, and I don't think it's going to get beat at any point in 2025, but there was an incredible sign on Raw Monday night I wanted to shout out. It said, "Enough Bronze Breaker." I think that was top 10 of the year, maybe top 5.
Very solid. Very good.
For sure. All right. We have a ton to talk about from Raw and SmackDown, and we're not going to waste any more time getting to it. We're going to kick it off, as we always do, by sliding into the main event.
This is the main event.
And man, oh man, do we have a loaded double main event for you today. Nick Aldis opened SmackDown announcing that Jacob Fatu versus Drew McIntyre was now a number one contendership. Then he introduced Cody Rhodes to actually start the show. Cody came out wearing glasses for like 5 seconds and a black coat over his suit, which I frankly did not understand. They weren't anywhere that was cold. Rhodes said he took Rollins to his limit at Crown Jewel, Seth Rollins that is, but Seth has plenty of his own shit going on these days, so he's going to refocus on being WWE champion. He drew jeers mentioning Drew McIntyre and cheers for local boy Jacob Fatu, basically mentioning he will fight the winner at Saturday night's main event without being so direct as to say that. Jacob then found Cody backstage with Drew watching deep in the background, putting over the Bay Area, offering a handshake, saying he would soon learn what it means to be all gas, no brakes. So that brings us to Fatu versus McIntyre for the number one contendership. I found this entire open to be, perfectly fine. It's been a few weeks now, not counting Raw last week, because I thought the Vision Open with Rollins in front, that was extremely strong. But it's been a few weeks now, especially on SmackDown, where like Cody Rhodes has just come out and said stuff. And when it's over, you're just like, okay. Like there's nothing really that's been compelling about him recently, really since SummerSlam, but especially the last couple of weeks. And I don't know why. I can't exactly put my finger on it.
I think it's because he hasn't been involved in a championship story in a while since he won it back. Like, right? There was the tag team match, him and Cena. There's a Crown Jewel match.
Right, with Rollins, which was built well.
It was good, and it was a good story, and the two of them were good. But him as champion, like on SmackDown,
yeah,
he hasn't had like a real someone's coming from my title since he won it back.
Yeah, I think that's fair because with him and Rollins on separate brands, and they really didn't do that much crossover. And when they did, I think it was on Raw. When Cody's shown up on SmackDown, he's just existed in almost like a vacuum. Whereas Rollins, there was still a number one contender being developed for him. You had CM Punk, LA Knight, Jey Uso all fighting over that. And with Cody, it was just like waiting until this ended. And then again, even here, you have this big number one contendership, and Cody's just like, hey, yeah, there's a number one contendership. See you guys later. like that was it.
And also, like,
it's really boring.
It just became number one contender like that. It wasn't like going into the show, we knew it was going to be number one contender.
Right.
Like, they just decided to make that. And so that was like, okay, so suddenly now I have a reason to pay attention to a Cody story at the beginning of the show when we hadn't for weeks.
Yeah, I mean, for a Saturday night's main event, I could argue that you could have put a number one contendership match between Jacob Fatu and Drew McIntyre on that show and just saved Cody's title defense, honestly, for TV or for Survivor Series or whatever the case might be. But okay, this is what they decided to do, and certainly there were reasons for it. So we had Fatu against McIntyre scheduled for the number one contendership right as this match was supposed to start. Fatu was shown completely laid out backstage under a steel truss with blood and teeth on the ground under him as he coughed. McIntyre hit the ring, calling him Bleeding Gums Fatu, demanding his arm be raised as number one contender. Aldis came out threatening McIntyre, who said he had nothing to do with the attack. Aldis knows he's never taken a shortcut, and he deserves to be the real number one contender. Those are facts. That brought out Rhodes screaming at McIntyre, claiming he did it, and he knew he did it without any proof, saying he robbed the fans of a number one contendership. So Cody decided to put the title on the line immediately with 9 minutes left in the show, and SmackDown immediately went to a picture-in-picture commercial break as they start brawling. Could you imagine a championship boxing match beginning and ESPN breaking away as opposed to, hey, let's stay with the first round? Anyway, they brawled into the crowd and outside the ring through the break. The bell rang with 6 minutes left in the show. Cody is wearing suit pants, a vest, and dress shoes. Rhodes took a future shock DDT and a Glasgow kiss, came back with a Cody cutter. With 1 minute left, McIntyre threw Rhodes into the timekeeper's area. So Cody grabbed his WWE championship and hit Drew in the head with it for a babyface disqualification. What? So Cody clears off the announce table. He sets up for Crossroads. But after everything else that just happened, security finally decides to run out and separate them. So Cody ran around the ring, hit a pretty chaotic splash from the top rope into a bunch of dudes, including Drew. And that's the way the show ended. Okay, so first, from a factual standpoint, Fatu was medically unable to compete, and WWE had to rebook the way they were going to make McIntyre the number one contender. He has some type of dental issue. He wasn't cleared. Shit happens. That's understandable. A level of allowance is allowed for a plans change situation. Still, this was idiotic. I thought it was a terrible pivot from start to finish. Jacob's lack of availability, that was not a surprise Friday. WWE had multiple days to come up with an alternative plan. They have an entire roster of talent who could easily have been thrown into this match. Randy Orton, who already got pinned by McIntyre, would not have been hurt any worse by losing again, would have been the perfect option considering fans, they would have been intrigued by the idea of what if we get Randy and Cody, which would have made up for him being a replacement. Plus, it's Orton, which would have just naturally excited fans to see him in a match. Now, looking at the SmackDown roster, okay, I realized there were a few other options. So let's say you can't do Orton for one reason or another. He's unavailable. He wasn't scheduled. And therefore, you have to do this type of booking with Cody. First, you made him get ridiculously upset over a guy he shouldn't care much about at all in Jacob. Then you made him look like an absolute moron by wrestling for the WWE Championship, this thing he has held in the highest esteem, in dress clothes. Then you have him, the babyface, DQ himself, which completely contradicts the initial balls on the table challenge despite him being in a suit. The point of doing that is to show he has gumption, and he's not scared of anyone like a white meat babyface shouldn't be. And then you have him purposefully DQ himself. You don't even do it accidentally, or by having Drew pick up the title first and threaten with it, and then Cody do it because he's filled with rage. Cody's anger at the start and the DQ at the finish were completely disproportionate to the situation that existed, especially considering McIntyre claimed he was innocent, and in kayfabe, he's not a liar. He's arguably the most justified heel in WWE history at this point. So, yeah, look, man, McIntyre, he's the right number one contender. He would have been either way. But now you have an unearned challenger wrestling for a championship at Saturday night's main event instead of a major show. And while a title change is certainly possible because it makes all the sense in the world to flip it to Drew at this time of the year, I'm not, as of now at least, going into that match with the level of excitement I should be. And given the way this transpired, really, it should be a stipulation match of some kind. They had two separate brawls at the end of either bell. So, yeah, despite legitimate obstacles facing WWE Creative, I thought the pivot sucked. Really, the only redeeming part of it was Fatu selling with the blood in the teeth. That looked great. And the mystery of who attacked him. Paul Levesque normally books that quite well, as we've seen in the past with Aleister Black and Jade Cargill. But I just thought it was a shit start and a shit end to SmackDown.
I would add a correction to myself. Cody did defend the title against Drew at WrestlePalooza. Mm-hmm. So he did have a
in a rushed match because they wanted to put that show together.
Yes, he did, but he did have a feud, and that comes into play here because it's like we've already seen Drew lose to Cody once on weird circumstances because of the referee and stuff like that. So, and this is an example where like this is why I don't want spoilers on various things because I had seen the Jacob Fatu news earlier in the week. So I was like, oh man, that sucks. And then when the show starts, like, no, we're still doing this at the end of the show. My brain's thinking, all right, how are they going to get out of this? And then they get out of it. And nothing really important is ultimately going to happen. But yeah, this made no sense. It just made Cody look stupid on multiple fronts. Surely you could have come up with something better. You listed a bunch of reasons there. But this is also like Drew McIntyre has not really recaptured, I think, I don't say heat, but like the energy around the aura he had during the CM Punk feud.
Yeah, the world title level momentum that he had.
Yeah, they're trying to run the same thing again, just like a B version of it. And so it's hard to kind of get like, yeah, he beat Randy Orton. Maybe he did or didn't attack Jacob Fatu, but he's just complaining all the time and losing all the time in the big matches. Like it was easier when it was like, hey, he did get screwed. Okay. And like maybe he kind of sort of got screwed in the first Cody match, but like we kind of just went away from it for a couple of months. And now he's got to win a number one contendership back. So it's just the storyline has not been good. I'm never going to believe Drew's going to win the big one. And so, like, I'm not super excited for this, and the way we got here was kind of dumb.
Yeah, and now that we know that the World Heavyweight Championship will have a new holder on Saturday night's main event, that's even less reason for us to believe that another title is going to change. Now, it's possible that it does, and WWE just loads up this show because they need it to reset storylines going into Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, the end of the year, especially because they've had to pivot in other ways. But the point you made about McIntyre is spot on. There have been situations over the last couple of years where Drew was booked and positioned in a way where you said they could put the title on him at any time and it works. Primarily the CM Punk feud and some of the stuff with Seth Rollins and, everything in that zone. But now, ever since really they moved him to SmackDown, he's just kind of a heel. And he doesn't pose the same threat that he used to. He doesn't feel as important as he used to. And you still want him to be champion, but I don't have the same desire, A, and B, belief that him winning the title now will be received the way it would have been 12 to 18 months ago.
Yeah, like his characters, the storylines have just been inconsistent. Like the priest stuff around Mania was like, okay, like they made it better than it should have been, but he has always felt like a guy he's kind of hanging around up there, and they have him do a bunch of different things. And when they need someone to fight for the title, it's him, but he's not going to win it. And he needs to be refreshed a little bit. He's incredibly talented, and like we said, there were several times we thought he could have won the title. Absolutely. We may have said he should have won it at WrestlePalooza even, because it was like if he loses this one,
can you say we may have said he should have won it at WrestlePalooza? My fault.
Yep. We may have even said that he should win it at WrestlePalooza even if we didn't pick him. But like, and he didn't. And so it's just like, let's refresh this a little bit in some way.
Yeah, we definitely said that, in fact, because it was good enough, and the timing was important enough, and the stage was important enough, where we thought, hey, if you switch this now, you're actually going to give this guy some real momentum going into the end of the year, and take the title. And we talked about all the ways it would work if they're going to make Sammy champion. Sammy and Drew legit have a long-term feud that they could harken back to and build that for WrestleMania, because you're not going to probably put Sami Zayn, whenever he does win the title, you're probably not going to put him over, Cody Rhodes or CM Punk or one of those guys. You're going to put him over a heel like Drew or, someone of that similar type of level. Not the top, but the next level, tier 1B instead of 1A. And we thought that was possible. And look, maybe that's what's going to happen still. Maybe they change the title at Saturday night's main event, and this is the way it goes. It just feels like they've missed peak after peak after peak when it comes to McIntyre. And now here you are. He gets a number one contendership pretty damn cheap, I would say, all things considered. It wasn't a compelling storyline or pivot, and now the show's next week.
Yep. He wasn't even like bothering Cody so much to like trick him into accepting it. Cody doing it on behalf of Jacob Fatu.
Because he was angry that the fans weren't getting the main event they were promised or something. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I know you're a white meat babyface, but like, why not convince Nick Aldis to make someone else challenge him? Or, you know what I mean? Or look, we hate it on the show. Okay. But there is the standard move. If you need someone to become a number one contender,
to beat the champion, to be able to beat the champion. That doesn't make any sense.
Like, if they had made this a number one contendership and then they did the thing with the title where Drew tries to use it, but Cody takes it away from him and then hits him with it. Oh my God, I just lost the match. I made this guy number one contender. I can't believe I did that. It's a million times. It's trite, but it's a million times better than having a babyface DQ himself for no reason.
Yeah, that would actually have set it up even better.
Yeah.
It's a tiny little tweak that would have made it all make sense.
And then you have McIntyre this week on SmackDown, I should say, come out and say, you see, Cody, I got into your head. You know, I have you worried. You're scared, blah, blah, blah. And now you have a storyline. And
there you go.
Instead, we're left with this. Now, look, I was heavily critical.
I blame the AI for that, for what happened.
Oh, it's clearly AI's fault, obviously, because creative in WWE would never write something to that level. So look, despite my heavy criticism of all this, the way this could go from shit to like spectacular is if Cody is ultimately revealed as Jacob's attacker. I'm not suggesting I want Rhodes to turn heel, but if they were going to turn him heel, that attack makes sense given their backstage confrontation. Then the purposeful DQ against McIntyre would suddenly be clarified. I cannot imagine WWE turning Cody heel, especially now. He's still getting incredible responses. But that's the way you make what happened on Friday awesome. The other option, if you don't want him to be Jacob's attacker, the belt shot needs to at least be Cody taking on a more unrelenting, no F's given type of character. It has to matter and it has to be explained this Friday. Otherwise, it's exactly what we said it was.
Yeah, I mean, Cody Rhodes turning heel would be great, but I don't think this is the way to do it.
Yeah, I think you if you ever are going to do it, you build up to it in a much bigger way than something like this. So that's SmackDown. Let's move over to Raw. Adam Pearce opened the show in the ring. Again, very similar with Nick Aldis. When the Vision exited a black SUV with Braun Breaker still carrying the World Heavyweight Championship, they entered to the tag team theme and were still called the Vision, which I found interesting but appropriate. Pearce announced that Seth Rollins underwent major shoulder surgery. He has been stripped of the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. I did not love that verbiage. I would have preferred vacated. Stripped is when someone does something wrong. Vacated is when you're injured and can't defend, but I digress. Then he announced that CM Punk would contend for the vacant title against the winner of a battle royal that was going to main event Raw. Pearce demanded the strap get handed over. Breaker initially refused. Then he decided he would do it if he was shown respect and asked politely, to which Pearce abided. Paul Heyman took the mic, saying they're easy to boo as heels, but they don't deserve it because the Vision wasn't about Rollins. He didn't betray Punk and Roman Reigns for Rollins. He did it for Breaker and Bronson Reed. Heyman said Rollins couldn't shoulder the burden of leading them because he's a bum shoulder bitch, which is the first of two awesome insults on this show. Then he put over the bronze and sarcastically ended it. Breaker stood in the foreground the entire time, so he's clearly the lead guy, at least visually, which is obviously not a surprise. So this was extremely basic the way it began. Now, because at this moment, I still assumed Breaker was winning the Battle Royal, my creative thought here was, why would you not have Braun say to Pearce, I'll tell you what, Suit, you'll get the title if I don't win the Battle Royal. Basically, I'm going to keep this in my possession until I'm not contending for the championship. That would have been pretty badass over say please, which every heel has said in this situation for decades. It would have also created intrigue through the show into the main event. Heyman on the back end was really strong. He is far more needed in this incarnation of the Vision than he was with Rollins at the helm. The way he retconned his role in the overall story to fit the current circumstances, I thought that was expert level. We do need the guys to speak next week. They don't have the presence or stature of Brock Lesnar where WWE can get away with Heyman leading this group. That would make him look like the manager of a tag team rather than an oracle for a pair that is supposed to dominate the industry as the vision of WWE's future. So a successful open, better than SmackDown, but clearly I had my issues.
I think it was probably as good as they could do given the circumstances. But it was always going to be a difficult thing to like truly make good, like really good. And I didn't think it was like, like they kind of did what we said, which was like, they saw a weakness in Seth and decided to take it out. But like Heyman, like after the fact, was kind of, he was both saying like, because he says this later, which we'll get to, which is like, I had to make a decision and I'm going with Braun. But he's also speaking as if sort of like this was the plan all along, like I was going to leave you for Braun anyway.
Like eventually or whatever.
Yeah, but like the vision wasn't a thing when he joined with Seth yet. I think it might have been the next day. Maybe it was coming. It was like the next day or...
Well, it was, yeah, he showed up the next night when Roman and Punk attacked and then it was Breaker and then, we're the vision. And then Reed was the one who showed up like a couple weeks later.
Yeah. So like there was no easy way to put it all together. So like I didn't love this, but I also don't really know what else they could have done.
Right. I'm not sure this could have naturally been better than it was. But again, it was for me the title handing over and like not doing that in a compelling manner, a unique creative manner. That was probably the biggest detriment to that segment.
Like even if it was like, and he kind of did this, but it wasn't like as direct, just like, I thought I hitched my wagon to you because I thought you were, going to take over this industry. And I realized that you're not, and Braun is, and I'm going with Braun instead. Because this is really the first, like, it's the first time that Paul Heyman switched sides, I think, without him, like, knowing, without it being a scheme.
Right.
Because he just decides in the moment, all right, I guess I'm going with Braun and Bronson. And that is different than all these other heel turns Heyman has done. When he turned on Punk, when he turned on Roman, like that was like, it was like a secret scheme.
Yeah, he was the mastermind.
Right. This wasn't, and we know it wasn't because we saw how it played out. And he admits that to Becky later.
Yeah.
So,
or he changes his story based on what's convenient for him, which is very Paul Heyman.
That too.
To be fair.
So like it's just a different version of Heyman doing this. And I think maybe that just takes some getting used to.
Yeah, I think he has two versions of the truth. One he's telling when he's in front of Braun Breaker, and the other he's telling in private, right? Which is more the reality of what happened. I didn't have a choice to do this, which is totally fine. But you're right. Throughout Heyman's entire career, I'm thinking even, I want to say back in the day, this is when I was not watching WWE, but like caught up on it. I think he turned on Brock Lesnar for Big Show at one point.
Yep, that's right.
Even that was his decision. Like that was something he said he planned and they did. So yes, this is the first time where, at least to us publicly, what we saw on Raw last week was Heyman be forced to make a choice. The other time, was when he backed the new bloodline, when Solo Sikoa took out Roman Reigns. And
yes,
but that was clearly not permanent. We knew that wasn't going to last. This is permanent. Like this is a real thing that he's doing. They took him out of that like a month later, 2 months later with that thing at Madison Square Garden. So yeah, it's look, they were put in a really difficult situation here. Do I think it could have been done better? Yes. But was this poor? I wouldn't say it was poor, and I thought it was better than the equivalent situation on SmackDown.
Agree.
Now, to be fair, okay, my critique and my proposed creative, it didn't really hold up based on what happened later in the show. There was an interesting segment where Pierce told Heyman he pulled the Vision from the Battle Royal. He suggested Heyman might be able to get them back in if he was respectful and polite. So Paulie did a bit of groveling, but Pierce still said no and slammed the door in his face. Then Becky Lynch comes up behind Heyman, who showed cowardice, saying he had no choice but to back the Brawns over Seth. This is what you were talking about. He even got on his knees, he claimed, trying to help get between them and protect Rollins. Heyman said Lynch is the breadwinner now, but even she knows the job is to survive week to week until the next week. He suggested there was still a place in the Vision for Bex, who could have the best of both worlds at home and on the road. So Lynch grabs his tie, pulls him close, calls him a penguin-faced prick.
Ah! Yes! I I love that.
I told you there were 2 great insults on the show. One from Heyman to Rollins and one from Lynch right back to Heyman. Freaking hysterical. Anyway, she said she never liked or trusted him. Beck said Seth never needed Paul. He used him and was actually surprised it took him so long to turn. Lynch said Rollins wouldn't hurt Heyman when he comes back because he's nothing to him and he will be nothing without him. Instead, Rollins will destroy whatever Nepo baby to whom Heyman attaches himself as he watched.
Good line.
There wasn't much crowd response to this, which made me wonder, like, could they even hear it in the arena? Because the Heyman-Lynch interaction was completely necessary. Number one, as we talked about last week, you could not let that go in this era of WWE creative. And Becky's threat, it did feel empty, given Seth is presumably out of action for several months. It's not like there's going to be some resolution to this soon, but she was right back in peak the man mode right here. And I'm always going to be a sucker for that version of Bex. It was a top-notch promo, dragging this guy across the ground as usual from her. The Pierce bit before this, preceding it, was a big-time surprise. I did not expect those guys to actually get held out of the match. So I figured they're going to get involved and like eliminate everyone or try to screw it up somehow or intimidate Pierce, force him to add them back in. But it did create the intrigue I wanted coming out of the first segment, going into the Battle Royal, because now I didn't necessarily know what was going to happen when earlier I thought, well, clearly Breaker's just going to win this match. So that was a positive. And it was also great that Pierce stood up and made a strong decision when he so frequently gets pushed around. Didn't even lose his temper here. That was positive as well. In totality, I thought this was an awesome segment and kicked the ever-loving shit out of the open to the show.
I thought the Becky part was perfect. Her and Paul and Becky, everything Becky said. And Becky was like, it was one of those things that's like, it was like one of those scenes in Game of Thrones when like 2 bad guys are talking and threatening each other. And it's like fascinating because you're rooting for one of them like on principle, but you're still not rooting for them overall. And that's what Becky was here. Like she has to do that for Seth and say her piece and say what she's going to do. By the way, saying that they're going to come back in whoever kill, they used the word kill.
Yeah.
Which
I said that. I don't know if she said that. I said that.
No, she said it.
Oh, she did?
I wrote it down.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, whoa, that's like, it's a word that like makes sense, but you don't hear it in wrestling very often. And so I liked it because it added to the intensity. Like when she called him prick, my first reaction was you should call him something worse than that, but you can't say that on television. So then when she later comes back with they're going to kill whoever it is, I was like, oh, all right, that sounds intense. I thought that whole thing between them was perfect. The Pierce stuff, I didn't like. I understood it and I understand the creative behind it. I just didn't like it. I was like, I don't like this. I want the bronze in the match, even if they're not going to win.
Right.
Like it's a battle royal. They're not getting pinned. You can eliminate them in any sort of shenanigan-y type of way. So just immediately taking them out, I was like, why? It made the whole New Vision look weak. They got pushed around by Adam Pearce twice in one episode. So yeah. I didn't like that.
Especially when Heyman is known backstage for being able to get eventually whatever he wants.
Yeah.
He doesn't get told no, whether it's Roman Reigns or Brock Lesnar or with the Vision. He usually is able to finagle it one way or another.
He got Sami Zayn a title match on another show that Sami wasn't even on.
Right. He didn't take it, but yeah, he did he arranged for that to happen because he was so powerful. Now, maybe because he didn't have the World Heavyweight Championship with him and they no longer had that kind of power, maybe his role was diminished, but I do agree with you. Now, I didn't feel that way in the moment because I was like, okay, let me see the way this goes, right? Like if Breaker and Reed get involved in that match and it creates a feud or something, even though they're not part of it, okay, that's going to make a lot of sense. So I didn't feel that way in the moment, but in retrospect, certainly looking at it, it was like, how could you have some of the people in that match? I'm going to talk about this later when we wrap up the main event. How could you have some of the people in that match and not have those guys?
You have guys in that match who wrestled already on Raw too.
Like 7 people.
Double duty.
There were a shitload of people, yeah.
Like, could you, like, if Paul Heyman tried to get a spot for Roman Reigns, like, he had to come back to Roman Reigns and say, no, I didn't get it done. Like, it's over then and there. But Braun Bronson are just kind of like, gotta like.
I
all
believe
right,
that happened during the pandemic, and Reigns like looked at him and was silent, and Paul's like, "I'll try again," and then like got it done,
Yeah,
or something
but it's
like
like,
that. Yeah.
But then Paul spins it to them. And
Well,
you're
let's
like,
get to that.
yeah.
Let's get to that part of it. So even later backstage on the show, Breaker and Reed, they're pulling off their hand wraps. They've accepted the fact, because I guess they saw it on the screen. They're not wrestling in this match. So Breaker suggests to Reed, he's like, "Hey, should we go into his office and like grab his shoes and just leave them laying somewhere?" And I just want to briefly pause here, because that line was such a throwaway, but it was so freaking funny for me to hear randomly as like a casual conversation point between these guys. Like they're like, "What should we do now? Should we steal his shoes and just throw them away?" You know what I mean? It was just so freaking funny. I don't know if it was like planned or if it was improv or whatever the case. They're like, "Hey, make sure you guys are talking when Heyman comes in the room." But for Breaker to say that and for Reed to be like, "Hey, it's not a bad idea," when he's like the tribal thief, I don't know, man. I freaking loved that. And I thought it was like a huge point I wanted to make here. Anyway, so Heyman comes in. Breaker asks him, "Hey, can you explain how this backfired on us?" And I'm like, okay, here we go. Like Heyman's gonna get like the gumption to go back and force them into the match. So Heyman tells a tale about Brock Lesnar's rookie season, saying Lesnar could have torn through the roster upon debuting. Instead, he listened to Heyman. 5 months later, he beat The Rock for the WWE Championship. Then he told the story of Punk and how everyone hated him, but he, under Heyman, had an epically long title reign because he listened. And then, of course, he told the story of Reigns, who similarly listened to him and had a legendary title reign. Heyman said, "It's not just about slaughtering your competition, but properly maneuvering backstage." He claimed there's still the vision, there's still the future of WWE, and the guys accepted it, saying, "I guess we have a lot to learn and a lot of people to hurt along the way." It was a little bit surprising to see that a guy like this in Breaker, who has been psychotic at points, is now fully willing to listen to Heyman and be completely okay with getting pulled from a number one contendership match without good reason from Pierce. And like I just said, considering some of the other names who were in it, Otis, Akira Tozawa, Pierce as a GM had no legitimate reason to actually keep these guys out. So it was a bit like the SmackDown pivot booking for me at this point. I understood it. I get why they're saying, "Hey, be patient," because WWE doesn't want to strap him up yet. And if they put him in this match, the expectation may have been that he wins and becomes number one contender and even beats Punk because he was carrying around the title. But that's an expectation you put on them. Breaker and Reed could have left the title in the ring last week and not carried it into the building this week. You're the ones, WWE, that had the title around his shoulder. So you had to reverse the expectation that he's not involved in the World Heavyweight Championship situation right now. For me, it was frustrating from a logic standpoint, especially because they had plenty of time to book it. But at the same time, I actually thought it was unique in that it wasn't the same old of Heyman saying, "I wasn't able to get this done," and the guys being angry and yelling and getting involved in the match. So simultaneously, I was disappointed, but I was also intrigued because I don't know what's going to come next.
To all your points, but also like, it's not like Heyman said, "No, take them out of the match," and then he explained to them why he took them out of the match. He tried to get them in the match and failed.
No,
So
they were already in the match. He was trying to get them back into the match. They were in the match on the graphic. Pierce pulled them out, and then Heyman tried to get them back in.
Yeah, if Heyman had pulled them out and then told his tale about Brock and Punk, it would have like tied together.
Right.
But instead, he fails at something he's trying to do, then just spins it to them. So I don't buy what Heyman is saying to them as a viewer, because I know it's not the actual plan. You can't be like, "No, this is fine. This is the plan. This is Brock. This is Punk." It's not the plan. We just saw what the plan was, and the plan didn't work. So again, the whole thing is very difficult because of the Seth injury. They had to come up with a lot of new things on the fly, and there's no like way to make it great. I'm not like,
right,
this is not terrible. It's a very, very difficult situation. I just think there was just inconsistencies throughout this show that don't fit what these characters would have done, and just like small tweaks would have just made the logic a bit better. That's all.
On both shows, they had the bones correct. I said this like a week ago. I hate using like reusing metaphors, right? But they had the bones of this, the structure of it nailed. It's the meat of it that was stringy. It wasn't massaged and cooked the way it needed to be for it to deliver the flavor that we as viewers want. And it's frustrating when you watch WWE. And look, we're not in wrestling creative. Neither of us have ever done that job. Okay. And there's a lot of people who have a lot of shows and a lot of Twitter accounts and whatever. WWE should do this. WWE should do that. Okay. But you and I do work in a creative field. We've done creative writing our entire lives, right? And we've been watching wrestling for decades. And it's frustrating to me when we can sit and pontificate between each other and on the fly come up with something that is either better or more interesting or more logical.
Yeah.
And there's a room of people that had an entire week to do it.
And AI.
Plus AI helping them, clearly. And they couldn't figure out something a little bit more logical, a little bit more sensible than what they actually deliver on screen. And
it's hard. It's hard. It's a hard situation for sure.
Yeah, it is. Now, I had 3 prevailing thoughts after these segments before we get to the rest of this main event. Number 1, I hate number 1 contendership battle royals. If you want to do it for a tag team title or a mid-card title, I can stomach it. The Royal Rumble gets this right because there's attrition, but battle royals are lazy as shit. NXT does them for the women like twice a year. I hate it. Why not do a gauntlet match or a 3-match tournament on this show? Get creative. Find someone that actually deserves this opportunity. That's number 1. Number 2, to me, these segments only further proved how essential Rollins was to making the vision work. Breakker is not at the point in his career where he can be a faction leader. Visually, I don't see it from him. Reed is just not that guy. As much as I like him, he's great in a faction. He's not a leader. For people who were shitting on Rollins all this time, I hope they're happy because this is what they were wanting. And for me, it's clearly lesser than what it was before. Number 3, the vision badly needs to expand now more than ever. They're literally just a team at this point. They should add 2 young members, maybe like Austin Theory and someone from NXT, and legitimately be an up-and-coming stable that is focused on succeeding together and stealing WWE from the older guys. Not that dissimilar from what Nexus was supposed to be, except that failed. You put 4 guys together here, you have them succeed. And yes, I know Bronson Reed is like 37, but he's still fresh to the product if he's not young. So Chris, 1, 2, and 3, number 1 contendership battle royals, vision without Rollins, vision expanding. What are your thoughts?
Battle Royal, I generally agree. I do wonder just because of the timing with Saturday night's main event. Like, gauntlet matches are tough because we never get the behind the scenes process of the order in which it happens. Mm-hmm. I always want to know, like, do they just pick a number and they have a bad number and we'll find out? They always just happen. And I'm like, whoever is last, it's naturally a heel position to be in because you've had to do the least amount of work. So like it could have worked, but you know, like I understand in this situation doing a battle royal because it's has to happen quick, and it's also because you're fighting someone else who was not the champion, and you just did that with Punk and his was it triple threat last week? It was so like it's not like you're winning a battle royal to go fight a current champion. So I was okay with that. On the vision point, I think I'm in the opposite boat with you, and it may just because I didn't like how Monday went. I kind of want just Braun and Bronson do the team up without Heyman, which is what I've said for a while.
Interesting.
And I think that line about should we just go get his shoes? Like, I think you can do a lot of stuff with those guys.
Like bully heel type of deals? Like a bully heel team, kind of?
Yeah. And go get the tag team championships and run roughshod over everybody. And at some point, if someone wants to contend for the world title, try to be a double champ or something like that. Like almost like 2-man power trip it, just without all the belts.
Right.
You can only have Heyman say so many times that Bronson is the future of this company before it starts to feel like Drew McIntyre, the chosen one.
Yeah, true.
And I worry about that. I want to see if these 2 guys can swim on their own because I think they can. I'm not saying you have to have Braun go out and cut a 20-minute promo in the ring by himself. Like, put them in good positions. I think Heyman is just kind of a distraction at this point.
What if they just become domineering over him and he's the guy in the background getting stuff done and they're the guys that are leading?
similar to what he was to Solo. I think that would work too.
Closer to that, yeah, exactly.
Because Heyman still feels like the front of it now.
He definitely did after Raw. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think that's what you want.
Great point. So let's continue with this storyline because a lot more still happened on Raw. The Usos got into it backstage with Jey apologizing to Jimmy for last week, saying he was actually mad at himself for making the same mistake he did in Paris. When Jey mentioned Roman, Jimmy reminded that Reigns isn't there for them now nor ever before. They are the ones in the Battle Royal tonight, and they are the ones with opportunity in front of them. Jimmy said Jey lost the World Heavyweight title for no reason other than he stopped believing in himself. Jey said Jimmy and Roman may both actually be right, and they dapped up agreeing that they were good, even if they had to each look out for number one, meaning themselves, in the match. This continued the Usos, both individually and together, being so much more interesting than they have been in a long-ass time. I'm not quite sure what the end result is going to be, because a Jey heel turn doesn't seem plausible given his level of popularity at this time. That's one of the myriad reasons it's so intriguing, but I was going into this match looking at these guys and saying, I wonder what's going to happen. And there was a small part of me that thought, what if Jimmy actually wins? Not that I wanted him to be the other number one contender, but I was thinking, if Jimmy wins, what's that going to do to Jey? And I thought that would have been a really intriguing booking.
Well, we'll talk more about Jey and all that stuff going on, but I did think it was interesting and it was good stuff going into the Battle Royal.
Before we get to the match, Ben at MattRat103 wrote in, he said, Finn Balor getting a shot at a world title vacated due to a shoulder injury would be a cool full circle moment, but I'm not getting my hopes up. Obviously, he sent this during the show. I had the exact same thought when I saw him on the match promotion, which basically featured half the roster pulling double duty on the show, as you and I talked about. The idea of Balor Punk with Balor winning was super exciting for like 15 seconds that I considered it. And then I came to my senses and realized it would never happen in a million years.
Especially because of what else happened to Finn on the show.
Right, exactly. It would have been, and how many times have we seen that in WWE? Like dozens of times historically. I was like, wow, is that really what they're doing? Oh my God, like it's possible. And then of course, it didn't happen. Anyway, let's get to the Battle Royal. So the Usos entered together to Jey's music, which continues to make no sense when their combined theme is a banger and it's far more appropriate. But maybe it's purposeful, right? Because I think Jey is wearing his Heat stuff and Jimmy is in his Day One stuff. It was funny, though, also, Chris, during this entrance. Jey picks up, I mean, was it a newborn baby? Like, this baby didn't know what yeeting was. He picks this thing up, tries to get it to yeet. It no-sells him. And I'm like, what did he think was going to happen? The baby can't move its extremities. Like, it's not going to yeet in front of you. So I just thought that was really funny. Otis, one of two returning superstars, was eliminated immediately by Rusev. Punk was on commentary here, by the way. Judgment Day together eliminated Dragon Lee. Dominic Mysterio eliminated both Rusev and Penta, both of those advancing stories. Sheamus and Ivar then start going at it, and I'm thinking,
Oh, we got two big meaty men bumping me tonight.
Sheamus hit white noise on the apron from an elimination, which was sick. I want to see that match happen, and I have no idea, by the way, why Eric wasn't there. El Grande Americano loaded up his mask, but ate a 1D, as Grayson Waller did earlier. Balor got eliminated with 10 beats.
No, don't like that.
Kofi Kingston eliminated Sheamus before AJ Styles tossed Dom out of the ring. But since no referee saw it, they were dealing with a ringside skirmish. Mysterio ran back in, remaining active. Yeah, that's some great Eddie Guerrero stuff right there. Well,
has that happened before? Like,
yes.
I've seen eliminated guys eliminate other people, but I don't know if I've ever seen somebody just go back in and they get to keep going.
Many times. They usually get eliminated like shortly thereafter, but yes, it's definitely happened many times before. The final six were the Usos, Kofi, AJ, Dom, and LA Knight.
Yeah.
At this juncture, I told myself I was down for Styles or Knight. I loved that Kofi was there, by the way. But I was down for Styles or Knight. I preferred the latter. What about you?
Same. I was like, all right, like we might. When the Bronze weren't in, I was like, I think it's going to be LA Knight. I think it's going to be the thing we pushed for last week. I'm excited about this.
Yeah.
So Styles eliminated Kingston, which is probably building to something. Knight leaped over AJ for a jump-up elbow drop on Jimmy. Styles and Knight countered one another's finishers. Jimmy saved Jey from elimination for a second time in the match. They caught Styles flying with a double super kick and eliminated him. only for Jimmy and LA to get caught up together in the ropes. So Jey took both of them out, getting a majorly mixed reaction from the crowd. Dom stalked, trying to catch Jey from behind, and while he did get put into a 619 setup, Jey was able to stand up and toss him out of the ring to become co-number one contender alongside Punk, who actually did a great job on commentary selling Jey's betrayal of Jimmy. Jimmy was fuming, ranting at his brother as he celebrated. He's yeeting in the ring, almost paying him no mind. Punk and Jey then stood off in the ring. Jimmy's in the background looking pissed as hell at his brother as Raw goes off the air. I hated the winner, but I loved the match and the finish, which is really tough to do. I felt this was the perfect opportunity, Chris, for us to get a Punk Styles dream match, or for Knight to actually not just win this, but get crowned world champion almost in an interim capacity, considering the plan was obviously for Rollins to hold on to the strap. So why not do something fun and unexpected for a guy who deserves an opportunity? Obviously, the popularity of Punk and Jey is going to carry this, and with another Raw to build the match, when you factor it into the ongoing Usos story, the booking of all of this could be extremely interesting from a storyline perspective. But why would you have Punk pin Jey last week if you were going to have him win this? Jey, that is. I love when battle royals develop ongoing rivalries and introduce new feuds. It felt like this accomplished that in spades, bell to bell. Balor, Punk, Styles, or a first-time challenger would have been far more interesting. Obviously not Punk, since Punk is already in the match. So Balor, Styles, or a first-time challenger would have been far more interesting. But this did get the job done as a B+ TV main event. Again, quality battle royals do not grow on trees, and WWE ultimately put together a match that fans want to see in Punk and Jey. It makes logical storytelling sense, and it adds a lot of heat to one of the brand's top storylines, even if the winner individually of this match was the most boring and eye-rolling option to fans who are tired of Jey. They're making him into a more complex character. This furthers that end goal. So ultimately, objectively, it was a success, even if personally, I would not have had him win this match.
Yeah, objectively, like, good match. Really enjoyed the Battle Royal. They are giving Jey an interesting story, and back and forth. It's all there. Personally, this felt like the most boring result possible, because it's two guys who have already won a world title this year, each of them.
Mm-hmm.
Even at the two biggest shows, even if Punk only had it for a minute. And it's the guy who won the Royal Rumble.
Right.
He's won 2 battle royals for number one contenderships now. To me, that's just the least interesting thing you could do. And I wanted LA Knight for the reasons that I said last week, which was, all right, you're in the middle of football season here.
Mm-hmm.
Let him run with it for a couple of months. Him and Punk have a natural story.
Mm-hmm.
He's hot as hell. The pops he's getting are huge. Like, just see if it works. This is like the best and only chance LA Knight probably will have to have a world title. And instead, they're going with the familiar. They're going with the proven fan favorites, selling merch and that, and Punk and Jey. Even with Jey as a heel, or not a heel, even with Jey as kind of a tweener, the yeeting entrance is still just out of control.
It's insane.
Like, people love that stuff. It's if anything, it's the reason not to turn him heel or to do it. It's a credit to WWE that they are trying to do character stuff with Jey when he could just be the yeet guy for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
You know, that is a risk that they deserve credit for.
He could live on yeet alone, occasionally getting booked as Intercontinental Champion or US Champion for 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
And they would sell the merch and they would do great and everyone would be happy. But no, they're giving him a complex character. They're doing something interesting with Jimmy. I mean, the storyline between them is legitimately compelling. Like, it is. And it has created a situation where both of them individually, but also them as a team, are more interesting than they've been in years. Even somewhat during the Bloodline feud, but especially since the Bloodline ended. It's the most interesting they've been since the Bloodline ended. So,
and it feels like we're eventually setting up for a Jey Roman match, I think.
I think so, right? And it's also like, we're thinking Jay's going to turn heel, but if Jimmy turns on his brother, even though he's 1,000% justified, like, are they going to do that? Are they going to run back the Jey-Jimmy match at WrestleMania? Like, what exactly is this going to be? But the point is, we're asking these questions And that's positive. That's why, objectively, this worked. And it was fine and whatever. It's just WWE did such a strong pivot last week that you wanted them to continue leaning in that direction. And instead, they just righted the wheel and they're back on track because it's Punk and Jey, which we've seen. And as you pointed out, it's boring. It was the most boring option.
The fans will be like, I think it's boring. I think the fans will cheer a lot for both these guys and they'll get what they want out of it. I just think it's boring when it was an opportunity to really try something, different at a time when you can afford to do that.
Yep. They could have given Bronson Reed a number one contendership because he's never going to be world heavyweight champion, right? But they could have done that. They could have put Braun Breaker, and I want to talk about their exclusion from the match in a moment. They could have obviously put Braun Breaker in that. They probably didn't want him to lose because they weren't going to strap him up. That's okay. But as we said, so Jey for me was the most boring, but fans love it. Jimmy would have been much more compelling, but the worst possible match in terms of like fan interest. Knight obviously would have been the best case scenario, and Styles probably would have been the next best case scenario. So they chose the third of four options based on people who were actually in that match when we wanted them to choose the first or second best.
I mean, coming off a crown jewel and the AJ talk and all the stuff, like that would have been a great opportunity to pivot to like AJ's last title run type of thing. Like, and I guess we don't need to do a full preview yet, but Punk Jey, seems like an obvious Punk win to me.
Let's save it for next week, but I mean, you would think so, yeah. You would,
and I think that's boring. I think that is, instead of doing Seth Punk, we'll just give it to Punk now. And
as the way he wins his first real title since returning, it's immensely boring.
Or at least keeping his first real title.
Well, I'm saying like, his first real title reign.
Yeah.
Since returning, it's really boring, but maybe it's not going to happen because Punk was always going to be the contender here, but he wasn't going to be the winner. So maybe he's still not going to be. And maybe the title goes on Jey and that's how they tell that story. That's why we need to talk about this next week. Not only because there's a lot to talk about, but we're also pretty long on the show. And I do want to also put a bow on the Jey part of this conversation. Saturday night's main event, just to clarify why this is boring for Chris and I, it's going to be the fifth title match or number one contendership opportunity that Jey has received since losing the title in June. He had the gauntlet in July, the title match in Paris, the triple threat last week. He won the Battle Royal this week, and now he's going to get the title match at Saturday night's main event. So it's basically been 4 straight months of this with Jey. That's why people are tired of it, and that's why when you see it on the surface level, you say, oh, it's another Jey match for the title, which he doesn't necessarily deserve because, even though he's over, there's other people who would be more compelling. Regarding the vision, and going back to the point you made a couple minutes ago, this is how we can wrap up. I'm not sure the vision needed to be excluded from this match. I understand why they made the decision, but if they're going to factor into the Saturday night's main event result, however they factor in, that could have been started from an incident here. If another feud is going to get developed for them immediately, which it should be, because they're the big story on the show, it could have started during the match and would have made plenty of sense, especially considering the tag team champions were in the match and this main evented the show. So I'm not exactly sure what holding them out actually accomplished other than making this match less interesting. We'll have to see what happens next week to fully judge. But just at the end of Raw, I said to myself, those guys 100% should have been in the match.
Totally. It's a battle royal. You can eliminate them any way you want to, and it doesn't hurt them. That's the whole point. That's why I thought they did a battle royal for that reason.
Yeah, me too.
So you don't have to pin Braun in a gauntlet match or something else. And I didn't understand it at the time, and then it ended, and I was like, yeah, there was no reason they shouldn't have been in that. Because now, what are they now? Are they just gonna interfere in the Saturday night's main event and hang around that? Well, then just have Punk come off of commentary and trick them into getting eliminated.
Like they literally have nothing to do. Like if they get involved in that match and they cost Jey, then Jey and Jimmy decide to team up. Then they beat that. And by the way, we've already seen that match, right? And then they win again, and the Usos then split because of that. And then they go after the tag team titles. You could have done that 2 months ago at this point. You're just running it. You're just kind of reverting back to what you were doing before. If they don't get involved in that main event or that show, then what are you doing with them? Like who are they going after? Are they going to go after the tag team champions? Okay, that's something. But, that would have been much more compelling when Seth Rollins was champion, as opposed to this being the only thing these guys are doing. When you had Braun Breaker come out of Raw last week and into Raw this week, holding the World Heavyweight Championship. That's the problem. That crystallizes the concerns with the Vision, both coming into and then now going out of Raw into next week. Vintage, as I said, that was a monster main event, one of our longest in quite some time. We have so much to still talk about from WWE this week, and we're going to do it by hitting the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Hey, yo. Survey says one more for the good guy. Say hello to the back. Don't sing it. Bring it.
I'd say that we're about to do a speed run of this, but frankly, we're not going to, because some of these things are detailed and require our deep takes on them. So let's get through it. Solo Sikoa and MFT halted a Rey Fenix photo shoot, throwing him into a road case when he refused to move. It looked like their colorway is now black and gold instead of black and red. None of the other guys were in face paint, so it's possible and likely it's an in-ring only type of look. This was just a prelude to what happened later. We'll come back to it. So the Miz backstage told Aldis he was looking to make something that was vague big. Before Sami Zayn came in angry that the US Open Challenge got bumped from the show, Aldis said he wants Shinsuke Nakamura to get a proper rematch, and he doesn't want more trouble from MFT. Zayn protested, saying he wasn't going to get bullied and hide from anyone. He spoke about the importance and value of the United States Championship, standing 10 toes down about it, while demanding his segment go on as scheduled. The Miz obviously entered the Open Challenge talking shit about them when Carmelo Hayes predictably attacked him from behind, with both men getting separated. This was not as smooth as it was with Miz in the skull-crushing finale, but it fit nonetheless. I'm going to say good effort as a pure babyface segment for Zayn, continuing to enhance him in that way while preparing him for something bigger. The Miz part of it was odd, but it was obviously just setting up the attack. Melo got booed as I've expected and been concerned about, which is frustrating because he's actually the babyface in the storyline. WWE needs to figure out how to make this work so Melo gets over, not just by beating Miz, but with the audience. Otherwise, they may have to just team this guy up with Trick Williams. He's young. There's still opportunity for him. This is going to be a big test, and I just don't like the way the crowd is responding to him.
This is what I've been saying. Like, for 2 months of this, I was like, I feel like Melo's kind of being the bad guy here to Miz, and I don't know if that was the point or not, but clearly the crowd sort of feels that way, or at least they feel to the way where it wasn't built enough in a way where they were rooting for Melo. That's the problem. To get away from Miz. They never got to that. They never truly built that, which was my criticism at the time, and then you get that result. But overall good segment for Sammy and what that was.
He's being booked as the face. He's being perceived as the heel because the booking of him as a face was shitty. That's what we've been talking about for months, and it's why SmackDown Creative was part of the reason why SmackDown Creative was so shitty for this whole period of time. So we had the United States Open Challenge, Sammy against Ilja Dragunov. The reaction to Dragunov's return was rather tepid, I thought, at first, but there was a big pop once he started making his way to the ring and a couple cheers at the bell. They even chanted welcome back at him. Dragunov was yoked. He looked like he gained 15 to 20 pounds of mostly muscle. He had slightly longer hair, a big knee brace, and a neck tattoo that went from the top of his neckline to his chest cavity. A fair reminder that people make individual decisions every day. Not all of them are good. I feel like since he's a clean-cut, hairless, pale dude, making his first ink be this massive tattoo covering the neck and upper chest, it's like doing a gravity bong the first time you try marijuana, or chugging a fifth of Bacardi 151 the first time you decide to try alcohol. Maybe like dip your toe in first and take a shot. Don't go all the way. Take a little hit. Don't just take a gravity bong. Your thoughts?
So is this now 3 wrestlers with neck tattoos? Because Dominic has.
Well, no, there's like 15 because like Rhea Ripley has them and CM Punk has them. But
I mean like the ones who don't have a ton of tattoos elsewhere.
Yeah, in terms of ones that stand out as like the only thing around their neck and upper torso, yes, it's 3.
Yeah. So I don't know if Cody started this terrible trend or what, but for some reason, like, I think it's much better. I think Dom's is the worst by far.
It stands out the most. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, there's almost.
Well, no, hold on. No. Cody's is the worst. Like,
that's true.
Cody's is the worst of all time.
But we got used to it over time.
We're used to it now. Yeah.
I think Dragunov's is like, it's almost like enough that it doesn't feel as out of place. It's almost kind of Conor McGregor like, I think. So it wasn't as jarring as when Cody debuted his and Dom debuted his to me. So it's like, it's not great, but in terms of a first time reaction, it was the most acceptable of the three.
I completely agree with that. Cody's being full color and as big as it was in the position it's in. I mean, that it's going to be an all-time bad tattoo. Dominic's is okay because I have a feeling he'll fill out the rest. So it'll just be like Rhea Ripley or anyone else where like there's tattoos all up and down their neck and collarbone, and it'll blend in eventually. Dragunov's though, it's the one that stands out because he has nothing else on his entire body, and it's just a big neck tattoo. It's almost like he's wearing a neck brace, permanently is the way it looks like. So we'll see if he fills it out as well. But again, that was the first thought. So Dragunov exploded at the bell. Unfortunately, the match quickly went to commercial. Zayn landed a huge tornado DDT before Dragunov countered a Helluva Kick with a jumping boot. They exchanged German suplexes before Sammy took a toss bomb. Then he dodged a senton, hitting a Michinoku driver coming back. Zayn then caught Dragunov with like a shoulder buster into the middle rope of the ring apron, off the ring apron, which I've never seen before. Thought it was a botched brain buster, but it wasn't. Ilja landed the senton after a second commercial break. The crowd was going wild. We saw highlights of what we missed, which was basically them beating the shit out of each other. Dragunov landed a superplex. Zayn blocked H-bomb with a last-second raised boot to the dude's face. Dragunov dodged a Helluva Kick again, hitting a cradle suplex and a massive running knee. Then he avoided Blue Thunderbomb, hitting Constantine Special, but Zayn countered Torpedo Moscow with a half-strength Helluva Kick with a Blue Thunderbomb chaser for an arm lift false finish. The crowd started booing as Sikoa stood on the stage before walking back. Despite the distraction, Sammy caught Ilja running at him for an exploder suplex, only coming back to eat Torpedo Moscow and the H-bomb for an absolute stunning 1-2-3, with Ilja Dragunov winning the U.S. Championship in his return. This was an incredible match with a frustratingly imperfect finish. The idea was to somewhat protect Sammy and have Ilja earn the title. I'd have certainly preferred, and it would have been better off, if this was clean as a whistle. But given how long they wrestled and the overall quality of the match, it's tough to sit here with a straight face and say WWE didn't do 90% of what it could to put him over in his return. But again, we want the 100%. It was a fantastic moment for Dragunov, someone entirely deserving of this elevation. He was supposed to win the Intercontinental title last year, so strapping him up immediately is a no time wasted type of booking. He not only wrestled just as well as when he left, he looked even more like a main roster superstar physically. The dude wrestles like it's real to him, and it completely permeates the screen. The only minor negative was returning him in front of a kind of weird San Jose crowd that needed like 75% of the match to truly appreciate what they were seeing. But this was tremendous. Without commercials, without the frustrating solo distraction, it's possibly a 5-star match. It's tough to evaluate a 20-minute match when 1/3 of it is not viewable. Without the solo distraction alone, it probably was 4.75, but this had both. So I'm at a firm A, 4.5 stars, and I cannot imagine anything else on wrestling television this week outshining it. Awesome stuff bell to bell, an extremely obvious good. Dragunov is the first ever UK champion to also win the US title. WWE might have booked this specifically for me, and Chris, I would have been none the wiser.
Yeah, this was really good. Great to have Dragunov back. I didn't read the update, so I was pleasantly surprised when he made his return. And everything about this was fantastic. My only concern was like, should it have gone on longer for Sammy, considering how well it was going and how it would seem to be elevating people pretty quickly and adding kind of rejuicing the depth of SmackDown to now immediately give it to Dragunov. I imagine he's not going to continue the open challenge. And even if he does, it doesn't quite mean the same because Sami Zayn is,
right,
veteran,
baby
all that
face.
type of stuff.
White Me Baby.
Yeah, and Sammy was regularly putting in the best match of the show ever since he's been doing this. So like, I love everything that happened. There's just a part of me that wonders, should it have happened later just because it had been going so well?
Yeah, that's the only part of it that kind of makes me sad, because the open challenges were a key tune-in aspect of SmackDown over the last couple of months while the show was bad. But it does feel like WWE is leaning into making the SmackDown men's mid-card like the work rate division that it used to be, just given the talent that's recently returned and the matches that have been wrestled. And that's a huge positive. So my hope is, even if the open challenge aspect doesn't continue, the title is regularly defended on TV in matches like this. One other fun note is Sammy was the one to put over Dragunov and Breaker as mid-card champions. He lost the Intercontinental title to Braun, and he did great work with Braun, just like he did here with Ilja. So that's really cool just for Zayn, putting people over. So just as Sammy was about to fully put Ilja over in front of the crowd, raise his arm after the bell, MFT in their face paint attacked both men like rabid dogs, landing their finishers before Phoenix ran down, getting caught flying at Tala Tonga for a huge chokeslam. Sikoa said MFT's run SmackDown. Again, it's not my family trees. It's just MFT. This name sucks. Anyway, Solo said he would make them champions again when the lights went out and Uncle Howdy interrupted on the Titantron, saying they are knocking on the door but not prepared for what's on the other side. The Wyatt Six, without Bo Dallas still, then appeared behind them, again getting holy shit chants even from a poor San Jose crowd. Sikoa called MFT off again and they just left. Now, normally, I absolutely loathe when attacks like this are done after title changes. I was calmed a bit by the fact that Dragunov got to celebrate individually before it happened. However, it was a massive missed opportunity to not have Sammy raise his arm, shake his hand, and then do the attack. Why would you not wait 30 seconds? Attacking beforehand accomplished absolutely nothing. In fact, it hurt the storytelling of Dragunov conquering Zayn and Sammy needing to face the fact that he lost the title in an open challenge. The attack itself was mediocre, and this was on the verge of a bad before the 6 came out, and the crowd lost it again. But not having Uncle Howdy there is nonsensical, specifically because it's completely unexplained. It's also confusing because now, Chris, you have MFT, a 4-man group, not counting Solo, really 5, right? Feuding with a 4-man group in the 6 that only is showing up 3. But also you have 4 other men in Zayn, Dragunov, Phoenix, and Nakamura who have been attacked by these guys. Are we doing a 3-way War Games or Survivor Series? Like, what exactly is happening here? It's really messy and extremely tough to explain. So I jockeyed back and forth on my grade. I'm landing on a light good provisionally. There's just something about MFT that's still boring me a little bit, and I don't know that they're ever going to get past that.
Yeah, I'm going to say bad for that reason for now. Not to say this whole thing can't become good later, but if we're doing 6 MFTs, which, as we said last week, is like intriguing, like maybe it could be something. Why do you need to attack these 2 guys here?
Mm-hmm.
Why does it have to be this moment for Dragunov ends with him getting beaten up? Unless it's getting to some sort of 3-way team thing, in which case, okay, maybe it will come together. But just in this current moment, I didn't like that. I give it a bad.
Fair enough. I know WWE doesn't do real mixed gender wrestling, but 2 weeks in a row now, Chris, they have basically teased Solo Sikoa and Nikki Cross.
Yeah.
And I need that to happen, even if it's not a match, which it obviously won't be, right? But her attacking him as part of a brawl or doing a move in a match, I want to see Nikki beat the shit out of Solo.
Since we never got Rhea Dom, we're never going to get anything.
I know, but they're having them literally go face to face, like she wants to fight.
Now Rhea did, I think, slam.
She did.
One of the Good Brothers the one time. So like,
Ripley put Dom in the prism trap and gave him a riptide. She did stuff to him. They just didn't have a one-on-one match.
Yeah, they've done little things, and also Candice in the ladder match, I think.
She did a move.
Was involved. So like they can have women do moves to guys, and I think everybody will pop big when it happens. And I imagine ultimately that's just what we're building up to.
I need something with Nikki and Solo. I mean, Nikki Cross doesn't even get singles matches, which is insane.
I mean, didn't Rhea go face to face with Solo too? when it was Judgment Day, Bloodline back in the day. They never did anything with it, but they like had a face off.
I don't recall that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't recall it.
And I remember thinking the same thing at the time. But
we're about to talk Judgment Day, so why don't you Google it and see if you can find a picture, and maybe we'll be able to explain. So Judgment Day commiserated backstage ahead of two big matches: the Tag Team Championship and Roxanne Perez attempting to become number one contender. Dominic Mysterio then came in. He also had a big match on the show. He got the cold shoulder from the crew, angry at the position that they got put in by him. The guys decided Dom could handle Rusev by himself as a consequence, and Roxy gassed him up. As usual, automatic good for Judgment Day Clubhouse. I will say, it's long past time to figure out like what's next, because there's an endless consternation between all of them. Outside of Perez supporting Mysterio and the teams being kind of friends individually, like the guys and the girls, none of them seem to like each other anymore. So it's nearing time to shit or get off the pot. Liv is only 4 months into her injury recovery. It's possible that it's only a 6-month injury. It's more likely that it's a little bit longer. So I don't see this ending until early 2026. But WWE does need to figure out a way to make this a little bit more interesting than just, oh, we're all together and we don't really like or trust each other.
I did find it April 2023, the Usos and Solo facing off against Priest, Dom, Finn, and Rhea. And Rhea and Solo are staring at each other the whole time.
Nice.
And that's like the bit of the back and forth. So
nice.
that's what I had in my
good call.
My memory.
Good recovery. Yeah.
In terms of this, it was good, but like it does feel like it's all falling apart, which is also the point because of kind of what happens on the show. So I liked it was good, even if I didn't like that it was happening.
Yeah, agreed. Tag Team Championship, Judgment Day defending against AJ Styles and Dragon Lee. Styles was in his gray gear for the first time in a long time. There were some really fun like tag team shenanigans going both ways. AJ Lee were all gas in this match. Styles had a nice seated front slam counter on Balor before Dragon got the hot tag, hitting his hanging double stomp and double tope con hero. JD McDonough basically reversed a Liger bomb. Balor raked Styles' eyes, but McDonough still took a backbreaker over the knee. Styles recovered for phenomenal form for a 2.99 broken fall. Legitimate perfection from McDonough and the referee. It was probably the false finish of the entire year. Honestly, that's how perfect it was. Yep. McDonough took a Pele kick only to counter Styles running with a standing Spanish fly. Judgment Day then landed a moonsault and coup de grace in succession, but Dragon broke the fall by flying over JD for a swan dive, very similar to the way Pac entered the AEW ring a couple weeks ago. Balor attempted a Styles clash, but AJ escaped it, rolled through, hit Styles clash himself on Balor for the 1-2-3 to crown new tag team champions. Pun intended, this was a phenomenal match. It was the Styles Balor work that we've somehow been prevented from getting seen in their most recent short, lackluster matches. And then you add Dragon and JD, two of the most underrated wrestlers on the entire roster. And you had, I don't want to call it a masterpiece of a match, but when you consider the pieces you need to make tag team wrestling successful, all of those pieces were involved here. This was basically the equivalent concept of the US title change, albeit without a returning superstar. I loved the match. I loved the booking decision with Dragon getting his first main roster title alongside a top tier veteran who's not named Rey Mysterio, giving him the rub. I'm sure that was the original plan. It is so much better for it not to be another luchador in a mask who you're directly comparing the guy to. Hell, I loved this so much, I'm not even bothered that Finn was pinned. The match was excellent. The title change for me was a surprise. I figured they were just a couple in between contenders. Let's hope this breathes new life into the Raw tag team division, which badly needs it. There's still not enough quality established teams. This felt like a step in the right direction. Not that Judgment Day were bad champions. They never got storylines or defended the titles. Hopefully this opens up the division. 4.25 stars. A, good.
Good match. A great match, obviously. AJ and Dragon have been good. We have to call them AJ Lee.
I know.
It's you. There's nothing else you could call them.
I have two other names. You want the other two names real quick?
Yeah.
Dragon Styles, which I don't think is very good. Phenomenally.
Yeah. I get what you're going for. It's a good effort.
AJ Lee's better.
But
it's the best one.
I never love the name plus name
combined
tag team champions. Even the Charlotte Flair Alexa Bliss thing, just call them. What are they going like?
They should be called. They should be called Twisted Queens. I mean, it's right there.
Yeah, or that. But aren't they going themselves like we're not friends or something like that? Like,
they don't even have a name, but that's the thing they're doing. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Oh,
like
Allies of Convenience is what it was.
Yeah,
Terrible.
just introduce them as that or something instead of saying Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair. I'm always kind of bugged if you're going to do the tag team thing. If you're going to be tag team champions, like really, like we say, similar gear, give you a name, enter at the same time, emphasize the team part of it is all I would like from them moving forward. But it was good. Judgment Day were fine as champions. I forget who'd they take the titles off of. Was it New Day?
New Day, I want to say.
Or the Vikings, whatever.
No, New Day.
It's an opportunity now to kind of create a tag team division again, which they had kind of been doing and then just kind of got away. And it's sometimes like when they put the tag team belts within a larger group, that larger group story always overtakes any tag team stuff. And so I'm hoping we can do real tag team stuff with this. We saw it happen with Bloodline. We saw it happen with Judgment Day. We saw it happen now with the Wyatt Six. This is just a tag team that has these tag team belts. Do tag team stuff, please.
It happens with the men's tag team titles. For some reason, when it's the women's tag team titles, it doesn't happen. I mean, because
the women don't have teams.
Well, that's true too, but they still wrestle though. And it doesn't really what it is the women's tag team titles are have been so poorly booked historically that it didn't slow them down any more than they already were. With the men's tag team titles, when you throw them in a group, it actively slows them down, as opposed to them being outside in a separate division without a faction, which allows them to operate. I don't want them to have a long, reign. Also, AJ Styles, I think his contract goes until the end of February, something like that. I'm sure they're going to extend it and make his retirement WrestleMania. I can't imagine it's just going to be a couple months. But let's say his contract runs out at the end of April, and that's when he retires. You have 6 months left with AJ Styles, okay? You have another month and a half, almost 2 months, with John Cena. If you want him in this tag team Styles for 2 months, fine. As soon as Cena retires, you need to get on your horse with the Styles final run. And I don't know that it needs to include another world championship. I would give him another world championship. It should at least include a singles title. And he needs to have all the matches that we want to see from him. Because unlike John Cena, who has a really detailed history with all these people in WWE, they wanted to run, the best hits and all that type of stuff. I get it. We disagree about with WWE's booking and a lot of his final run. With Styles, he had a huge career before WWE, but across TNA, WWE, New Japan, he's a professional wrestler. The way to honor him at the end of his career is letting him put on the best possible matches that he can. And again, I'm okay if we do a 2-month reign for the tag team titles. After that, he needs to be on his own, getting those matches from now until his retirement.
Agree. Yes. Have a plan. Please have a plan for what AJ.
A strong in-ring plan in place across the board. Totally agree. Intercontinental Championship. Dominic Mysterio defending against Rusev. Joe Tessitore and Wade Barrett had a hysterical conversation for a couple minutes at the start of this match about Dom's neck tattoo. And Wade was claiming, he's like, I surveyed a bunch of women. They prefer it. He's sexier than ever. I just loved this conversation. Dom attacked at the bell. Rusev obviously dominated for a while. After that, Dom chickened his way out of the ring as Rusev was about to lock in the Accolade. As he went to grab his titles, Penta appeared in the Timekeeper's area, scaring him. Rusev then ran Dom into Penta, who came up to confront him. So Rusev just punched him in the face. That gave Dom an opening to try a 619 with the bell hammer in his boot. Rusev caught his legs, ripped the hammer out. When he tried to use it, the referee pulled it away from him. That gave Dom another opening to cheat. He low blowed him from behind, 619 frog splash, retained the title, completely cheating as the heel, yet getting a massive ovation once again. As Rusev was angry after the bell, Penta blindsided him with a really cool springboard tornado DDT off the ropes. And for me, Chris, it's crazy that this dude Dom is getting cheered to a massive degree, despite being a pure heel, not only in character, but the way he's winning matches. The booking was sensible. We're clearly headed for a triple threat, especially since Dom cheated, and Pierce already said Penta was due to get a rematch because of it. The match was a lot of fun. The crowd was nuts for it. They loved the overall finish. And of course, this extended in the Battle Royal. Good.
Yep. Good. We've wondered for a long time, like when Dom won the Intercontinental title, we thought, is he going to be a babyface out of this? And he hasn't been, but he's still largely getting cheered for the whole thing because he's entertaining.
Mhm.
You know, it's interesting how he went from the most booed guy, and people will still boo, like they love being in on it,
Right.
but it's like an appreciation for him as well. So yeah, this was good. I would have liked Rusev to win. He's been on a real roll, and they've been doing some good stuff with him. And like, I don't think this is necessarily the end, obviously. So that's good. But no, this is still good.
By the way, Dom was the star of Raw on Monday. He cut a promo I didn't mention, but he got cheered during that promo. It was during a commercial break. He beat Rusev. He called Penta a bitch. He eliminated both of them in the Battle Royal. He cheated his way in both matches, and he got cheered across the board. His world title reign, we've been talking about it as like 2027, 2028. I think it may happen before the end of 2026 at this point.
Maybe. I don't like world championship.
He is so effing over, man.
He is, but like you could see WWE putting Jey Uso, on First Take and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know if Dom is almost too weaselly to kind of.
He can trim
his
his hair and mustache. He can.
I don't know. Like
maybe he can't, actually.
I think it can happen. I think maybe it should happen, but he's been doing great. He's been doing great for a long time.
He has. It's just remarkable to me this last year, especially ever since it was one thing when he was with Rhea Ripley and, feuding with Rhea Ripley. Now that he's separate and he's doing his own thing, I don't want to say he's more over than he was before because it's a different type of over, but the fans have just really attached themselves to him. And it's really cool.
It's a credit to him that he made it work with Rhea. He made it work with Liv. He's making it work on his own. Like, this is not a guy who's just doing it off of other people. It's Dom.
Yeah.
Dom is the common thread here.
Fans just naturally like him. They figured it out, and he's thriving, and it's really cool to see. So we had Stephanie Vaquer against Roxanne Perez in a non-title match. Perez rolled out a devil's kiss, pushing them both onto the floor. Raquel Rodriguez then took a cheap shot at Vaquer through the ropes, going into commercial with Vaquer landing devil's kiss shortly after the break. Fans even chanted one more time for it. She didn't oblige. Roxy worked the arm all match, hitting a Satomura cartwheel knee drop. In between, Stephanie avoided Pop Rocks, immediately hit 619, but Raquel distracted, leading to more arm work. Vaquer literally pushed Perez off the ropes into Raquel as she was trying the double springboard moonsault, nailed the heels with a double crossbody outside, plus the new SVB for the win. Wade called it Angel's Wings. It probably should be called Devil's Horns. No? Like, it seems
that's a good point.
Obvious. Why not call it that? Rodriguez attacked after the bell. That led to a Nikki Bella return, given the show was in California. She took out both heels, ate a huge boot from Rodriguez. Vaquer then tripped and fell, trying to springboard Raquel with a huge double dropkick, ultimately clearing the ring. Vaquer was limping afterward, but moving around. I'm hoping she was just selling the botch. Bella's twins popped out. It seems like we got a black screen at one point on the segment as well. Stephanie later thanked Nikki, who said that she was just proud of Vaquer taking the women's division by storm. She warned her that she's put a huge target on her back and she needs to be careful. They agreed to watch each other's backs. The match was real good. Roxy was given credit for wrestling the most matches in WWE this year. She deserves that acknowledgement for sure. Work was super strong bell to bell. The post-match with Nikki definitely worked for the crowd. I was hoping that this whole storyline was going to be Vaquer 1-on-2 against them as a pair of title challengers. We talked about that last week. Adding Nikki to the mix, it puts them in a tag team situation. You already have the Warriors, Io and Rhea operating as teams. You have Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. You need singles challengers for Vaquer. Otherwise, you're doing with her what you did with Io previously, not letting her regularly defend the strap and lessening her reign. It's early, so I'm not going to go that far criticizing the booking. This may be just to get past Saturday night's main event and into Survivor Series season. Either way, the match, the post-match, the backstage segment, they were all good across the board. They did seem to telegraph Nikki turning on Stephanie sooner than later, and I am interested in that. She's never been trustworthy as a character, and she's always been better as a heel. But primarily for Vaquer and Perez, this was good. Everything else was fine as well.
Nikki Bella's surprise return. All right, like that was interesting. And not that she's been gone for a long time, but like, it's a thing that's happening. This was good.
Intercontinental Championship, Becky Lynch defending against Maxine Dupree. The challenger was indeed announced from Sacramento, despite it previously being Phoenix. Start of the match was Becky trying to get even by forcing a countout. Maxine took 2 awful bumps during commercial. Wade had a funny comment here about never winning a match at home in the United Kingdom, and we all, of course, know why that was the case. Dupree countered manhandle slam into a stunner, but barely anyone popped for it. Then she did a cool step-up leg drop that did work. Maxine hit a fisherman suplex, kip-up, and a pump knee. The crowd got fully behind her. Lynch did a butterfly suplex into an armbar. Maxine arched her body out of it, back into an ankle lock, and landed a huge crossbody off the ropes for a false finish. Becky grabbed her title. Maxine chased her down and got her into a sunset flip cover for a false finish. Lynch then grabbed the referee to try to get out of it. Then Becky just hit Maxine with the title for a DQ. Ran her into the ring post, hit an exposed knee to her face, and then manhandle slammed to stand tall at the end. For me, this was worse than their prior match. Maybe Maxine was nervous in front of family and friends. But on top of that, the finish was awful. Why is Lynch not beating Dupree clean in the second meeting? Are they going to rematch this at Saturday night's main event? Changing the title? Maxine cannot be the one to end this reign. She's nowhere near qualified or talented enough in ring to be a champion who's believable in beating Becky. It would take the title in the entirely wrong direction after all of this time they've spent building it up with Lynch and Lyra Valkyria and obviously AJ Lee's involvement. I neither want this a third time nor want that to be the result. And I don't want AJ Lee returning and costing her the strap either. So what exactly was the purpose of doing this finish? Bad.
Yeah, bad. Like, this is 3 times now. And the first time was bad. The second time was like, oh, like, you surprised us. Good. You made something out of it. You can't keep going. If you go back to this well over and over, there's not enough things they can do. That's the whole thing. And you did it once. And Maxine cut a promo afterward. I saw on Instagram, I think challenging her again. So I don't know, but it's like, all right, like if you do this too many times, it's going to then expose her. Like, yeah, she's improved, but she's not that good yet. And I'm worried they're going too far again to turn what was a good thing that became a good thing into a frustrating thing.
Yeah.
Like Becky Lynch should be doing more important things right now.
Way more important thing. And it's okay if like the program is AJ Lee, but they're delaying it until Survivor Series and they need something in between. That's okay. And I understand a lot of the other women are involved in their own things. I don't dislike the fact that Maxine is getting this opportunity. And I liked the fact that she won via countout. It worked. It was a really good segment, that match. But you can't have Becky DQ herself from someone who is literally the lowest tier wrestler on the main roster. And this is not hating on her. It's just reality. She's a full tier lower than the next worst women's wrestler, who is probably BFAB. And Maxine is one below her. And she's taking the greatest women's wrestler in the world. And it's not just me saying that. It's Becky Lynch saying that. It's Sports Illustrated saying that. It's ESPN saying that, and CBS Sports saying that. They're taking her to now cheat to beat her, or to cheat to get out of the match, excuse me, after already being counted out. When you do that and you run it a third time, generally you change the title. You cannot have Maxine Dupree as the Intercontinental Champion and expect us to take that title seriously unless Becky literally murks her and wins it back the next week. But you know what I'm more interested in than Becky Maxine 3 or 4 technically? Becky Jessica Carr 1. They have this hatred going on as talent and referee. Jess can actually wrestle. That's the match I wanted coming out of this most. Not a 4th Becky Maxine match, a 3rd in this particular feud.
I mean, I would love for the referees to be active like characters, but they haven't really done that. So yeah.
Kabuki Warriors got a promo package saying Rhea Ripley got what she deserved on Raw in Australia, Asuka being glad it ruined her homecoming. They also claimed that Io Sky's spirit was broken and Rhea had to pay after breaking apart their family. Asuka told Kairi Sane that she was finally proud of her because she showed how ruthless she can actually be last week. She said that's the way the Kabuki Warriors are going to operate, and now that Io and Rhea are vanquished, they need gold around their waist. This was great. Kairi seems to have fully gone along with Asuka to the dark side, buying into her shit, at least for now, and nothing they claimed was false other than that they broke Ripley's nose. That happened at a house show in Japan from Raquel Rodriguez, but it worked because in kayfabe, she got DDT'd onto the announce table head first. So even though it kind of sucked that the four of them were not all live on the show, because this has been the single best storyline on Raw for the better part of 6 weeks, 2 months. Despite that, this was good. I'm into it. I love that they're going after the tag team titles. And guess what? We suddenly have a full-fledged women's tag team division. I'm going to talk about that a little later in the show.
Yeah, no, that was good. I one thing about the Kabuki Warriors too, their theme song is awesome, and I'm glad when they put them together, they still use it as well. So, we knew that wasn't going to be the end of things in Perth, and we were going to kind of move on from there. And this is a good way to do it. These two are great. Like you said, yeah, we can build out a women's tag division now. So let's do it.
Speaking of women's tag team championships, Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair against Zaruka. As I said previously, WWE, they need to reverse the entrances for this team, because Zarya's entrance on SmackDown is 100 times cooler than Solruka's design-wise. Blake Monroe was ringside. She was eyeing the North American Championship. Zarya absolutely murked Bliss with a one-arm spinebuster after a counter sequence. Sol did a nice spin setup, but it ended in a front slam instead of a natural backdrop, which I thought was kind of awkward. The challengers came up empty with a keg stand, with Charlotte getting the hot tag. For some reason, we got stuck with a close-up camera angle from the apron, which sucked and made the wrestling look more fake. Stop doing this angle. Flair pointed a crotch chop at Ruka for no reason whatsoever. Sol did well on a hot tag, catching Charlotte with Soul Snatcher for a broken fall. Zarya put the brakes on a Hurricanrana off the apron, swinging Bliss into the barricade before getting booted. Ruka basically did a step-up moonsault using the ring post. She mostly missed. Sol then got distracted by Blake, which allowed Charlotte to chop out her knee with a figure eight after Ruka immediately fought out of a figure four setup. The submission was delayed, so she didn't tap immediately, so she was allowed to look strong, basically. That was much appreciated, both in reality and kayfabe. I hate when people tap out immediately. I should have loved this. For some reason, I didn't love it. It was unfortunate that Zaruka were given the number one contendership so quickly without earning it, though it was cool to see all four of them together in the ring. If Zaruka had been built up better, this would have been more meaningful. The finish was extremely well done as outlined, but having Charlotte beat a champion who might be losing her title this coming week on NXT Halloween Havoc, rather than Zarya, who's without a strap and had just lost on Tuesday, it seemed unnecessary. Bliss was actually the weak link in the match. She moved really slow and deliberately compared to the rest. Flair was also slow, not as bad. It was blatantly obvious, though, that they were wrestling slower than the NXT team. It's usually okay, but when Bliss hasn't competed in a month, it was stark. I'm giving this a good overall. It certainly wasn't bad. They got plenty of time. It was a B+ match. It just fell below my expectations due to the lacking speed and the finish not really helping anyone. And if anything, it hurt Sol.
I get doing this, and I get, tag team stuff. You have the women's tag belts, and there's nothing really for the other two of them to do right now. And it just didn't click as well as you would have thought. Like, it feels very much like they kind of want to present Solruka as like the next Charlotte Flair in terms of like gymnast background and all that stuff. So it was like, okay, but you're right that the NXT team ultimately did look better.
Yeah. Lyra Valkyria backstage was speaking with Pierce about how she and Bayley are too different despite winning their tag team match. Bayley came in extremely happy about their win, saying she had a big birthday surprise for her next week. They were also both wearing like cat wrestling shirts, which I assume they got in Japan, but it was kind of cute that they weren't teammates, but they were wearing similar shirts in that type of segment. Nothing to grade here, but consistent with their characters moving forward. We'll see what this means next week. But Chris, this is what I wanted to talk about. It's really interesting how there are now so many team-ups between women in the Raw division. It's necessary considering the strength of the women's tag team champions as a pair of stars. But this is what I have been talking about on this show for a long time, literal years, that WWE should pair up the women so they can realistically and casually move in and out of the tag division while simultaneously being able to work singles. I'm not sure if that's entirely what's happening, but it's closer than it's ever been before to that end. You have Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair. You have, I think, B-Fab and Michin. You have Lyra Valkyria and Bayley, Io Sky and Rhea Ripley, Asuka and Kairi Sane. I mean, just that alone are more tag teams in this women's division, possibly than it's ever had before. So If that is happening, and you know what? Even if it's not, if this is just how it happens to be right now,
thank you.
I appreciate it.
It gets back to what we always say, which is making the show feel alive. Like people can come in and out of each other's things, and it's not just like segment. We know all these people have feelings toward other characters, and they can have two thoughts in their head, and it makes it easier to make everything flow.
Yeah.
And that's a good.
It also gives you, like, if any of those women who are in teams win a title, it gives you two natural challengers, the other team they're feuding with, as well as a third, your partner, who could get jealous and demand a title match. So it's a natural storytelling device. I hope this is just the beginning of them doing this long term. Tiffany Stratton backstage said she's obviously not happy about losing, but it's her only defeat of the year at Crown Jewel, and she's focused on what's next. Kiana James interrupted with her businesswoman chest entirely exposed, saying that's why she offered her services to Stephanie Vaquera instead, because Tiffy wasn't good enough. It got heated between them, leading to Stratton claiming that James is only a representative because she's not good enough to do it herself. Match is booked for next week. On one hand, I'm glad it wasn't a segment with Jade Cargill or Nia Jax. On another, it was a segment with Kiana, who has been entirely unimpressive since returning, technically debuting, largely due to her character alignment and her booking. This was also super scripted. Bad.
It was bad, but also let's give a hey now to Kiana James.
Gonna look good, but she's got me saying, hey now!
And before you continue real quick, there is something with hey now that we may introduce here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. It was a fan suggestion. We're going to bring it up at a later date, but we're going to need feedback to determine whether it's appropriate. But that's a little tease. Chris, go ahead. I apologize.
No, that's pretty much all I have to say about this.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
there's not much to it. It's a bad.
You know what's ironic, dude? Kiana is an immensely better pairing with Tiffany than she is with Julia. They would be an awesome heel duo with James, like, being the social media manager, setting up shoots, preventing fans from getting near Stratton, stuff like that. Them both acting as Gen Z heels. Even her inappropriate business attire would make so much more sense paired with Tiffy than it does with Julia. In fact, you know what? I officially demand that WWE pull a double turn. It's too obvious of a win. Or am I just going too far and I'm incorrect here?
I mean, it's something. It's more than whatever this is, so I wouldn't be against it.
Do you agree that it would be better, or it would at least make more sense?
It wouldn't be worse.
Do you agree that they fit together better as characters and visually?
Yes.
I think it would work. Do a two-person turn, align Stratton and James. You have something there. You even have a women's tag team if you do that, by the way, which you don't have with Kiana and Julia. Aleister Black got a promo package with a snake slithering over his shoulder, saying he's been setting this up for months, a calculated move aligning with his wife that was by design. Black said no one is more diabolical than Zelina Vega, who came in saying they are not the infection but the mirror that shows it. Black said they're a necessary evil, the balance. Zelina said the venom isn't poison but salvation. They looked fantastic together. And I like the idea of them actually getting a duo name. The Venom totally works, but it's probably not trademarkable. This was obviously more geared toward Black aesthetic, but she's already in this one segment giving him an energy and a life that has usually been missing from his promos. Early, but a solid good.
It was good. There was a lot going on here. The snake just around and about. What's going on there? And so it was good. They were kind of saying a lot of things without being specific, but that's okay. It was a good start. And I like the energy from both of them on it. It also confirms what we thought when we were like, when it first happened, they didn't like smile or laugh or indicate that it was necessarily the plan. But then in this, they kind of indicated that, yes, it was the plan.
Yeah.
So that's good. My only critique would be they go from this cool, spooky vignette back to the Megan Thee Stallion SmackDown music that's all like bouncy. And then commentary's like, oh, there was that. And then they just move on to the next thing. And I really hate when WWE does this. Like, one of the things that Jim Ross was so underrated at doing, one of the best things he did that was like a little thing, when there'd be a spooky thing backstage or a vignette, or he'd be like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what's going on there. It looks pretty scary. We'll have to figure out what that is, but
Right.
the show has to go on. So let's talk about
Yeah,
this. Like, it was just like a natural transition. There's
Yeah.
like, instead of just like, stop. All right, we're like talking about how SmackDown is and the hip hop music's bouncing in the background. It immediately sucks the energy from what you just gave us with that vignette. Either do that and go straight to commercial, or have commentary like slowly transition out of it to sell it. I need commentary to sell it instead of just being like, well, how about that, huh?
Yeah. The three moves are go into commercial, go into a segment where someone is watching that, and then they respond to it. Or you have commentary, what JR used to do, to your point. He'd be, King, what the hell are we supposed to think about that? I don't know, JR. Maybe we'll find out next week. That's all you need to do.
Yeah.
You can't just go, and next up we have the Women's Intercontinental Championship match. You know, it doesn't play that way. So, you know, you're 1,000% right about that. You're also right about, this was a little bit like too mystic. When I talked about it last week, I said it's okay for Black to continue the mysticism, but you want Vega to be the hammer on top of that. This was probably 75%. We need that to be about 50%. I think they'll ultimately get there. They'll get comfortable. They'll figure out what they're going to do. They'll have feuds where it'll fit together. And that's going to be super curious. Motor City Machine Guns against Los Garza. The Faces were taping a video backstage wanting to celebrate their 1-year anniversary by winning the tag team titles again. Garza mocked them from the side, pointing out how they've completely fallen off. Big time facts. MCMG suggested they rematch, considering Garza were their debut match last year and the team that they beat. This was their first TV match in 2 months, mind you. Now, that's because Alex Shelley broke his nose, so they hadn't been wrestling. But they hadn't won a match coming into this since April. 6 months. The match was obviously hot given the skill level. Humberto had a really nice lift-up Liger Bomb before combining for the Glory Slingshot Blockbuster, which again should be their finisher. It's by far their best move. Berto landed a tope before Shelley prevented MTY landing Skull and Bones for the win. Fraxium observed this backstage, disagreeing over the best course of action to take. DIY came in laughing at their naivete, calling the Street Profits choke artists, who they weren't there, by the way. Johnny Gargano tried to take Axiom's mask for Halloween, which led to him snapping. The most serious I've heard Axiom in years, including NXT. He challenged Gargano for next week. I love when individuals from tag teams fight, especially when it's a match you've never seen before. I combined these really just because both on their own were good. Combined, they showed a renewed focus on the tag team division. Unfortunately, it's all happening away from the titles, and there's still way too many teams on this brand, but it's a huge step in the right direction, focusing on 4 of the 6 other teams at once. So like I said, an overall good.
Yes, good, like low stakes type of stuff, but it was logical. A lot happened. It involves a lot of people. I'll give that a good.
And lastly, no great here. Kofi Kingston and Grayson Waller showed up during a commercial break interview on Raw, saying they weren't impressed by the tag team title match. One team that didn't defend the titles and another that's completely makeshift. Also on social media, Xavier Woods decided the name for AJ Lee should be Butt Cheeks because they're bound to split sooner than later. Love that. Waller also had a great Sacramento Kings line here.
Well, they're really bad guys now because they cut down the city's sports team. That's what you do when you're a bad guy.
And Kofi explained Xavier was absent from Raw because he was on a mental health break due to all the stress about the tag team division. They again got real solid heat that no one in the United States got to see. We need New Day actually on television cutting promos, not just doing this shit. Vintage, that wraps up WWE in this week, leading into Saturday night's main event next week. Still a month and a week, so I guess that's 5 weeks technically, right? Away from Survivor Series. There's still a long way to go to build these War Games matches. I do feel like the product the last 2 weeks, mostly because of the improved booking on SmackDown, is more alive than it has been in a while. And frankly, it's probably the best overall booking that we've gotten during football season in a long time. Like, this is not football season WWE booking. This is, hey, we're building toward a significant event, and there's a lot of interesting things happening at once.
Yes, although the Seth injury of it all, in my issues with maybe the biggest story, both world title pictures are not great at the moment. Right. One of which is not really WWE's fault. So yes, like they tried to at least, but injuries to Fatu and Seth kind of made that a little more bumpy than they planned.
Think about this right now, okay? The 4 weakest parts of Raw and SmackDown are the world and women's titles on those shows. Stephanie Vaquer does not have a singular challenger. Neither does Tiffany Stratton, and the SmackDown women's booking has been terrible. There's a full pivot going on for the Raw World Heavyweight Championship. And the WWE Championship, we discussed the weakness there. Almost everything else, the mid-cards for both shows, the tag team divisions for Raw even is picking up a little bit. The other main eventers that are involved in things, all that's like extremely solid across the board. It's just the bigger storylines that they need to fix. The men, because they're pivoting. The women, because there's a new champion on Raw. And because on SmackDown, they just got to figure that out. And they really got to, beef up that roster, as we've talked about before, because it's way too thin. They need Bianca Belair back, and they need 2 women from NXT over on SmackDown.
Yes, I think the depth is very there, but ultimately WWE is always defined by what's happening at the top.
It is,
and that's what needs to is in the process of being pivoted.
It is, and we will have a lot more to say about that next week in this spot when we have your WWE Saturday night's main event Ultimate Preview. That's going to be a pretty damn big show, and I reported this also on buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. These are going to be treated now more like premium live events than TV specials. 2 hour, sometimes plus maybe they'll go a little bit longer, but 2 hour premium live events as opposed to just the TV specials. Even when it comes to the commercial breaks, my understanding is the show is going to be a little bit different. We'll talk more about that next week when we have the Ultimate Preview. By the way, there's also an Ultimate Preview coming this week for NXT Halloween Havoc, along with your AEW episode on Thursday. So this is a 3-show week, and next week is a 3-show week. That's 3 straight 3-show weeks right here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. On the way out, since I mentioned it already, please remember,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well. For $5 a month or $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Over head. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll not only get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show. You'll get exclusive news analysis posts every single week. Please support us. $5, $50 a month. We're an ad-free show. We continue to be. We're trying to get a sponsorship. We're supposed to land that soon, but we don't overwhelm you with advertisements. This is the way Vintage and the Silver King get a couple pennies for the work we do, and we pay for the continuation of the show. Buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. We would greatly appreciate your financial support. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show on YouTube. When you subscribe, you can listen to full-length audio episodes and watch full-length video interviews, the next of which should be coming next week here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. And please remember,
It's all about the 5.
so head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple, take a little extra time and leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. That is it for today. Vintage Chris Vanini will be back next week. We are officially back on our normal schedule for Vintage. This is the Silver King signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.